Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Franchise Show. This is the show where we get under the hat of all things franchising. Love doing that. And it's a live show. Well, it's live if it's 5:15 p.m. in the UK, if it's 11:15 Central Time in America, 12:15 Eastern Time in America. And because it's live, we love you to get involved. Pop in a comment, say hello, and get involved in our conversations. So what do? Each week on the Franchise Show, we take a new topic and we have a lovely guest. Today, two lovely guests. But before I introduce them to you, let me let you know what we're going to talk about today. So today we are talking about franchising in the USA. I was going to try the accent then, but maybe later. And to talk about that, we have the lovely Alan Greenfield and Kay Ainsley. Alan and Kay, welcome to the Franchise Show.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
You're absolutely welcome. It's a pleasure to have you on the show. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off with a little introduction from both of you, just so that people know what it is you do. And we're going to go ladies first. Course. So Kay, perhaps a little introduction from your good self to let our audience know a little bit about you.
Okay. My name is Kay Ainsley. I am with MSA Worldwide. We are franchise consultants. We're not attorneys, so any legal questions go to Alan. But if it involves the business side of franchising, chances are we're involved in it. We help companies to evaluate whether franchising will achieve their objectives for growth, and if so, how to structure a franchise program, how to re-engineer an existing program. We do operations manuals, training programs. If it touches franchising and it's not legal, chances are we're involved in it.
Amazing. And whereabouts in the US are you dialing in from today?
I am in Atlanta, Georgia.
Fantastic. Well, it's a pleasure to have you on. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. The same thing to you, Alan. Let us know a little bit about yourself.
Of course. I'm Alan Greenfield. I co-chair Greenberg Troig's franchise practice. I'm dialing in today from Dallas because following this, I'm going to go lucky enough to see the World Cup match, France versus Spain. And Greenberg Troig, we're an international law firm. We have close to 3,000 attorneys and offices around the world. And we frequently work with both U.S. franchise systems within the U.S. We work with U.S. franchise systems expanding around the world. And we work with international companies looking to enter the U.S. market via franchising, distribution, joint venture, or however so.
Amazing. Well, thank you both of you for those introductions, and it's really useful to understand a little bit about both of you. And of course, I met you both at the International Franchise Exhibition in London. I think it was beginning of this year at some point. It was lovely to meet you in real life, of course. So look, let's get into things a little bit right now, and I think I want to sort of start with. Let's try and sort of look at the framework of what franchising looks like in the US. So let's start with Alan and try and understand what the legal framework in franchising. Let's say you're in the UK, and you're looking to come to the US as a franchisor. What do things look like legally? I know you've got a lot of regulations. Give us a sort of an outline of that.
Yes, happy to do so. So in franchising, and the regulatory landscape's a little unique in the U.S. in that we have a federal franchise law that's regulated by the Federal Trade Commission, the FTC. And anyone that wants to franchise anywhere in the U.S. must comply with that law. Then, depending on where a company wishes to offer and sell franchises, you have state franchise laws. And in the US, we have to comply with both the state level franchise law and the federal level law. And there are about 14 registration states that have enacted franchise laws. And then there are other states that have what we call business opportunity laws. There's 30 some odd of those states. Most of the business opportunity laws, if you comply with the federal franchise law and you have a federally registered trademark, you'll be exempt from that business opportunity law. But if you don't have a federally registered trademark yet in the US, you may have to comply with those additional laws. So it's a patchwork of regulations that we have to comply with, a franchisor has to comply with to offer and sell franchises in the US. And then the other thing I'll just quickly add, it's a little unique in the US, and there's a couple other jurisdictions like Canada, where in the US, you have to actually register before you offer a franchise, not sell a franchise. So a lot of the franchise laws around the world, you would register or have a cooling off period after you have negotiated a franchise deal. In the US, no, we actually, you have to register your disclosure document in certain states or have a disclosure document under the federal law before you can offer a franchise. So, that's an important nuance in the US.
Wow. I mean, that's a really good overview. For anyone listening now or in the future that's sort of looking at bringing their franchise business to the US, it's really good to understand, even at that high level, the things that you're going to need to do. And I know there's lots of people that can help. Before we go to UK and sort of look more generally at how franchising perhaps has evolved in the US over the years and where you're at now, let's welcome a few people who have joined us here already live today. Let's first of all bring up the lovely Johnny Joseph. Fantastic to have you with us, Johnny. He's put hello from the temporary worldwide franchisee royalty auditing headquarters in my gorgeous ocean facing room. That sounds nice. At the Hilton Los Cabos in Mexico. Let's see how well you pronounce that, Harvey. There's this thing each week where Joe Caruso normally tries to get me to pronounce where he lives, and I fail epically most weeks, but we'll see how I did with that, Johnny. But great to have you with us. Really looking forward to hearing your thoughts on auditing and how that works in the US. And great, as always, to have you with us. We've got the lovely Penny Hopkinson with us. Penny has been a supporter of the show for many years, and I'm a big supporter of Penny. Penny writes ops manuals for our franchise businesses here in the UK, and she's turned that into a lovely AI platform, so it's very exciting. She's put, hello Harvey and all franchise friends, so looking forward to this episode and learning more. Well, so are we. Now, because it's Penny, I always like to show her book, always have done, even since the beginning. So, but do I get it the right way around? Yes, indeed. Look at that. And if you want to get your ops manuals the right way around, then talk to the lovely Penny. Who else have we got? Oh, here we go. We have got the lovely Joe Caruso with us. And here we go on attempting to pronounce where he is from. He always gives me a score afterwards, so it'd be good to see what I get. He's put, hi, franchise friends from the glistening shores of Havre de Grace, Maryland, at the Susquehanna River and the Chesapeake Bay. Franchise Info LLC HQ for retained franchisor advisory, gateway for brands to come to America. Well, look, how did I do, Joe? I'm interested to know. Last week I got an 8.2. So let's see if I do better or worse than that. And look, Joe is a good friend of mine, someone I'd always want to ask a question about franchising in the US. And he's spoken about it a couple of times on the show as well. So I'm sure he's going to have some fascinating things to say on that. We've got another comment here from Johnny. We're going to get into this topic very much today, but I always say that this show is about you. It's about our community. So it's important that we recognize and get you all involved. Johnny's put, lucky you, Alan. Enjoy the World Cup semi-final, which I will be watching on TV while getting sideline glances of the Sea of Cortez. Another Harvey pronunciation challenge. I think I did all right. I think so. Did I? We'll see. We've got the fantastic Genevieve Woodford from Sessions Art Classes, lovely franchise brand here in the UK. Great to have you with us, Jen. Looking forward to hearing your thoughts on all things USA franchising and your experiences on that. We got 3 more people to welcome before we get into this fantastic conversation on franchising in the USA. We've got the lovely Simon Wise, and he's put, hello franchise friends from the sunny banks of the River Colne, where effluent ebbs and flows, casts a stunning rainbow as far as the eye can see. I've been to where Simon lives. It's very much like that. Great to have you with us, Simon. He is a fantastic recruiter here in the franchise businesses in the UK. We've got lovely Tim Morris with us. Tim has put, good evening, franchise community. Good to be here. Well, it's always fantastic to have you with us, Tim. Great resource for franchising here in the UK, and looking forward to hearing your thoughts. We've got 2 more people to welcome, and then we're going to get into this. We've got the fantastic Neil Newman from Gather, one of our fantastic supporters. He put, my turn. I don't want everyone to try and get me to pronounce things. My turn. I'm actually in Pontcanna, Cardiff. Shouldn't be so challenging for you. Clearly it was. Great to have you with us, Neil. Always good to have you with us. Finally, let's welcome Kelly Steinecker, all the way from Arizona. And she's put, good morning, y'all. That was my American accent. It's very good. My score is in. It's an 8.1. A little weak on the uptick. I'm sorry, Joe. Sorry to let you down there. But, and finally, Johnny has put very high 9 scores from me on your Spanish pronunciation. Brilliant. Well, look, welcome to you all to the Franchise Show. It's amazing that you join us here each week. And now let's get into the conversation. So, Kay, give us sort of an overview of kind of where franchising has come from. I mean, it's been about in the US since the 50s, isn't it? Something like that, a long time anyway. It's why it's really interesting to understand what goes on there, because I think you lead it.
Well, franchising really took off in the US right after World War II. You had all this pent-up demand for goods and services, and you had GIs coming back from the war who had the GI Bill, who had some money saved up, and franchising exploded. Today, it's used in over 130 different industry sectors, everything from B2B services to B2C. There are currently, according to the International Franchise Association, over 831,000 franchise businesses located in the US, creating 8.8 million jobs that are directly related to franchising. And we account for $897 billion in total economic output.
Wow.
So if you're looking for what are the strongest sectors right now, personal services, and of course, QSR remains strong, and as it always has been. I think QSR probably led the way for franchising in the US. Alan talked about the legal framework for franchising. And I would say because of that, because it's very defined, it actually makes it somewhat easier to franchise in the US because you know what you can and can't do. With the help of a good attorney such as Alan, you can navigate the legal requirements. Also, because franchising is such a dominant part of our overall economy, there are a lot of other resources available to franchisors. Consulting, there are real estate companies that can help you locate the right locations and that understand franchising. When it comes to marketing, everything from introducing the brand to lead generation when you're looking to sell franchises. There are franchise sales organizations and people who can help you expand in the US. Supply chain, sourcing new products in the US, doing background checks on potential franchisees, providing financing and banking services. All of these things can help someone coming into the U.S. to grow, and working with suppliers who understand franchising, I think, gives everybody kind of a leg up moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting that you said there that the industries that are still growing, you know, the QSR, the personal services there, you know, QSR has always been strong in franchising. Even people that don't know franchise brands, they use franchise services every day of their life here in the UK and certainly in the US. And more than likely, when you go into your favorite restaurant, that's a franchise business. There's a lot of them, particularly in the US.
Yeah,
So,
oftentimes when I talk about franchising in front of a group of people, particularly those not familiar with franchising, I'll say, what is a franchise? And invariably, McDonald's, Burger King, whatever their favorite fast food is
Yep.
what they equate with franchising. And it comes as a surprise to know it's used in a number of other industries as well.
Mm-hmm. I think, Kay, you answered this actually, but let's put this up because I love people getting involved. And it's a great point here. Franchising is a very significant sector in the US economy. Can either of you share the percentages of the workforce GDP of the total economy? Well, Kay, you absolutely just did that. And, you know, it's really significant, isn't it? It's a really important part of the US economy.
Yes. Yeah, it not only creates jobs, but it creates opportunities for people to own a business and to build wealth. I think it also helps to stabilize a strong middle class because people have ownership of the business.
Sure.
And the U.S., the International Franchise Association puts out an economic outlook each year. And if you look at the 2026 outlook, which was released earlier this year, it talks about franchising accounts for nearly 3% of the U.S. GDP. Also, the franchise employment is projected to increase almost 2%, approaching 8.9 million jobs are involved in franchising, if that helps answer those questions.
That's amazing. I mean, it shows what a powerful industry it is. And, you know, I know here in the UK that not only does it do the same things, not as big in numbers, of course, because we're a smaller franchising sector, but if you take it in perspective, in scale, you know, it offers the same sort of things here in the UK. So it's really good to know that the general feeling in the US is one of growth, one of stability, a positive outlook in quite challenging times, I suppose. Let's have a little look. We have got a comment here coming in from Simon. Let's have a look at this one. Simon's put, why do you think UK brands struggle to scale in the USA, whereas USA brands in the UK are like a duck to water? This is a really good question, Simon. Thanks for putting this in, because you know, I've got a relatively good experience of US brands coming to the UK, and I disagree with that a little, actually, because I've seen them struggle, then give it another go, and then get it right. What's both your takes on this as a comment and question from Simon? Either of you can go first. Ladies first.
Okay. I don't think there is one answer to that question, but I think a lot of people make the mistake of thinking that the US is one big homogeneous market, and we're not. The US is actually comprised of many, many, many smaller markets. And developing the right strategy for entering, I might be exceedingly lazy, but my thought is always pick the low-hanging fruit first. Go where your chances are best to succeed. And in order to identify those areas, you need to do your homework before entering the market. What are you selling? Who are you selling it to? How are you going to be able to support a business in the US?
It's really interesting. I mean, do you think, and this is perhaps a question for both of you because it's got a legal aspect to it as well. I mean, if I was a a UK brand and I'm looking to come to America, what sort of structure do you think is the best thing to? You mentioned there about having lots of smaller markets, and I get that. You know, you've got all of the different states, they've got all of these different regulations and rules. Do you think area developers, consultants, brokers, master franchise agreements, when you're looking at all of these different options, what's your sort of take on that as somebody who's coming into the US and wants to take those first steps?
You want me to go first? It depends. It depends on the business. It depends on how well established you are in the UK or in other parts of the world, what you're selling, who you're selling it to, what the economics of the business are. Because if your franchisees are not able to get a good return on their investment, you're building a house of cards. Everything will collapse. One strategy is always to open a proof of concept location and run the business yourself. Learn what you can about the market before you take that next step to succeed. And that can often help you identify whether you want area developers, multi-unit franchisees. And then just one other quick point. I think one of the trends in the US are multi-unit franchisees, but also multi-branded franchisees. And that creates another strategy for people coming into the US. Maybe I go for somebody who has already multiple units of a different brand, a compatible brand, or a totally different brand.
Yeah, I mean, that's some great advice, as Genevieve's put there. I like that comment as well, because I can just put that up every now and again, can't I? I'll put it up after everything you say. But no, it is great.
Exactly. Every time I open my mouth, you pop that comment up.
I can.
Let Alan talk, though.
No, I completely agree with Kay, but also I'll add that it takes a commitment, and no different than a U.S. brand going abroad. In order to succeed, right, you have to have the personnel, the marketing, the local boots on the ground to really help it succeed and grow. If you just enter into a franchise relationship for the US and you don't have that team in place and the support that they need to grow, whether it's the sales, whether it's operations, everything else to have the locations open, you will flounder, right? The first franchisee that came to you and right, you opened with that franchise, it doesn't necessarily mean automatic growth. Yeah. You need to have a team in place to support it.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I completely agree with that. We've got some fantastic comments coming up as well from our amazing community. Before we get to those, I had a question myself. We're talking now about these first steps that a franchisor might take. Have either of you got a thought or opinion on which area of the US is the best place to start for, let's say a QSR brand here, because we've spoken about that a little bit. Is there a sort of an easy entry state? I mean, I'm guessing it probably won't be California. I mean, because they have quite a lot of regulations there, don't they? Or is that the way to go? Do you start where it's most regulated, and then it's easier to do the other ones as you grow?
I can start from a legal perspective. I mean, this is a combination of both legal and business side.
Absolutely.
But if the company's coming from the UK, I wouldn't recommend starting from California, right? It's 5-hour flight from the East Coast, or 6 hours even, from the East Coast to the West Coast of the United States, right? But flying from the UK to the Northeast, right, is not even that distance or around that distance. And so it'd be much easier to support if it were in the Northeast. However, right, a lot of people think, well, New York, it's large and great, but it also has extreme rent and other costs that you have to deal with. So you have to factor in, right, the regulatory landscape, the costs, and I would not so to answer your question, I wouldn't necessarily recommend the West Coast if you're coming from the UK, and I wouldn't recommend New York. I would focus on some other less expensive markets to operate and easier with less regulations on the East Coast of the United States. And there are states, the Carolinas, I'm just throwing out, a couple there. A lot like Georgia, because Atlanta's a large market and doesn't have, franchise regulations. Florida is another example. That's further down south. A lot I see choose Texas because it's also a business-friendly state, which is in the south. But there are a number of states, as we said, if you have a federally registered trademark, right, you have a number of states available to you where you just have to comply with the federal franchise law without having additional regulations where you have to register and perhaps subject the disclosure document to comments, and it's a slower process.
Yeah, amazing. We've got so many comments coming up here. We've got comments coming up from Joe, from Simon, from Johnny, from Tim, and from Kelly. And we're going to get to all of these comments. Let's go to the next one here from Joe. Joe's put, two commonly brands that want to come to the US immediately put off the franchise compliance and begin to sell their master, joint venture, and or first pilot. Alan and Kay, what are your thoughts here? Yeah, I mean, I think we've touched on this a little bit, and it's really important to get, and Alan said that you have to get those documents in place, your FDDs, your agreements, they have to all be signed off before you do that, and it's a really important. Kay, what's your thoughts on this comment here by Joe?
Depending on the business, I think there's pros and cons to doing a master or a joint venture in entering the country. One of the questions to ask about the master, as I said earlier, franchisees aren't making money. You're building a house of cards. So if you have a master franchisee, typically you're sharing all of the fees. So you're sharing that initial fee. You're sharing, more importantly, the royalties going forward. And you need to make sure that both you as the UK franchisor and your US master and your individual franchisee have enough money to be successful. And the master and the UK company have enough money to create the supply chain and the support programs necessary to grow the system and keep the system viable.
And what's interesting in the question here, right, it talks about beginning to sell their master, JV, or even a first pilot. Depending on the structure, it may be possible to structure it where it's not a franchise, or right, through a JV. For example, if the brand has control over the joint venture, that you may not need to comply with the franchise law. In addition, if you're selling a master, depending on who you're selling to, you may be able to qualify for a franchise exemption. So the point here is it's finding the right support system of counsel and others that can help direct you to those issues, because circumventing the law is not, don't recommend that under any circumstances, but being afraid of it it's also not the right approach, because if you have the right team in place, they can say, you know what, not an issue, we just need to include these acknowledgments in your agreement, and ask for these supporting documents to confirm that the franchisee satisfies the exemption criteria. Yeah. And so that would be my recommendation.
I think you've touched on a really interesting point, and I think I'm going to do an episode on joint ventures and the difference between that and licenses and franchising and so on. But it is a really important thing, because franchising isn't right for every brand and every market. And the differences between these legal entities and ways of scaling and doing businesses are nuanced, and with the right help and advice. And if you reach out for the right help and advice to lovely people on the screen, lots of lovely people in our audience that can help you, then if you do that due diligence, then you can make some really wise decisions. If you have just joined us today, this is the Franchise Show, and today we are talking about franchising in the USA with our lovely guests, Kay and Alan. It's been a fascinating conversation so far. I will let you go. I know you want to talk, Kay.
I wanted to add one more point, and that is the US is a big country. it's something like 3.8 million square miles. And it's made up of all these different population groups. Do you really want to give that to one person under a master or one company under a master? If you do, that's great. But I suggest you really do your due diligence and know what you're getting into.
Yeah, we had the topic of area developers on because it's not very commonplace here in the UK because the UK is a much smaller geographical area. But when you're dealing with large areas, you want experts in that area, however you get that expert advice. Let's have a look. We've got more questions coming in. Oh, look, that's good. We can put this one up when you talk, Alan. Look. That's good. Thank you very much, Joe. Always appreciate.
I scored higher. I scored higher than you.
It's not difficult. It's not difficult at all. Let's have a look at what Kelly's got to say. Kelly's put working in national franchising was what first sparked my fascination with how geography influences the way people receive, interpret, and respond to messaging. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Kelly is a marketeer, and yeah, the messaging when you go to the US, your cultural message, the message of your brand, is that right? Is that still going to appeal? And I think that goes the same when you're going each way. What's your sort of take, Kay, on that marketing message? If the UK business or another part of the world was coming to the US?
No, I agree. Somebody put up something earlier that said y'all on it. And you can get away with that in the South, in Texas and Georgia. It wouldn't work in Minnesota or Wisconsin or Michigan. So you've got to be willing to adjust as you go region to region. And I've seen it go the other way. I got started in franchising with Domino's Pizza doing international development. And we were running an ad that said one call does it all, because you call, you order your pizza. Well, in the UK, a call was a personal visit. So we had people coming into the store to say, well, as long as I had to come in to order it, I'll just wait and take it home with me. You've got to adjust, and you've got to know what you're getting into, and having good marketing advice as you enter and grow the brand is important.
I think culturally speaking, the US and the UK share a lot of similarities. There's some big differences, but I don't think it's a massive cultural jump from the US to the UK as perhaps it would be to go from the US to, say, China, as an example, or India. So I think it's an easier journey for brands wanting to make that international leap either way. Let's have a little look. We've got some more comments here. We've got a LinkedIn user. Let us know who you are. Do you think the same rules and thoughts apply in the UK market too? Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know. Obviously, your expertise and experience, both of you, is in US franchising. But I think my thoughts on this is if you're to come the other way with a brand, or if you're to start something in the UK, it's the same process of due diligence, understanding the region, understanding what it is that you're getting into. We don't have franchise regulation here, but to make your business attractive to potential franchisees, area developers, master franchise, then you've got to make it look good. You've got to make it work. It's got to be a proven entity. So, yeah, really interesting point. And let us know who you are.
So Harvey, I agree with you, right? I help, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of U.S. companies expand around the world. And it's the same questions we're asking, and the same, where is that country regulated? Does it have franchise laws? Will it receive, how easy can you support it? Do you have the team in place to support it? Is it an English-speaking country versus a Chinese-speaking country? Do you have your trademarks registered already in that jurisdiction? All the same questions, most of the same questions apply when expanding overseas as well. And I would just add that, think of US as Europe, size, geographic wise, and a lot of the same rules that you would think of in Europe. Would you grant one master franchise to a franchisee for all of Europe? Well, why would you do that for the US? Would you, right? Would you choose for your first, leaving the UK market to Europe? Would you choose the furthest European country or the most regulated European country as opposed to an easier country? Same thing in the US. So if you want to think from that approach, perhaps that may help.
I like that. I like that idea to try and bring something a bit closer to home from the perspective of the UK, or let's say another place in Europe. And like you say, Europe is a big continent. The USA is America is a huge continent. If you're then including things like South America and Canada in that's it's a huge area. So I think you're absolutely right, and a great way to look at it. Let's have a look. We've got Tim. What's Tim got to say? So Tim has put Wendy's is a good example where it didn't quite work first time in the UK, but second time around looks like they're making it. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And look, Wendy's are an amazing brand, and they are really successful now, but they gave it a go the first time and it didn't work so well in the UK. And I'm sure there was some lessons learned, perhaps that cultural fit and that flexibility, maybe that was the reason. But you're absolutely right. Let's have a look. Let's put this one up from Simon. Look at this one. Simon's put, traditionally UK brands have looked at the master franchise route in the US. Is that old hat now? How difficult it is to find a US master if you want to enter this way? Yeah, I mean, look, we've looked at this. We've said about breaking down this region into smaller things, and why would you do that? But I imagine that finding a master franchise has its challenges, just like finding multi-unit operators or area developers. Let's have a look here. What have we got coming up from let's have a look at this one from Simon again. What will a sophisticated USA franchisee investor be looking for from an inbound UK brand? Tech stack, ROI, multi-unit capabilities. This is a great question, actually. I like this one. Yeah, I had a multi-unit franchisee on this show from America. He had 140 units. A lot of our franchisors don't have 140 units. So it's a really, you've really got to think about it. I know Joe Caruso spoke about this, that a lot of businesses want multi-unit franchisees but don't set their businesses up to attract them and give them the right information. What do you make of this one? Let's go to Kay first.
Well, I think most sophisticated investors are looking for a good investment opportunity. What is the concept itself? Will it sell in the US? Where are we going to start? How many units can I put in? And then what's my investment, and what is the potential for the return on the investment? In addition to that, I think you'll find that your more sophisticated franchisees are looking to have more of a voice with the franchisor. Speaking from experience in our business, we've had a lot of clients with more sophisticated franchisees where the franchisee has suggested a different piece of equipment, a different product, different structure. And I think you're going to find that more and more as franchisees do grow, become multi-branded, multi-unit owners. Franchising got started with what we sometimes refer to as mom and pops. I would call them individual owner operators, someone who has 1, 2, maybe 3 units at the end of their career. But that's different than the person who's willing to make an investment to open 20, 30, 40 units.
Yeah, absolutely. A question I had, let's spin this on head a little bit here. If you are a franchisee and you are looking for a brand, let's say now in the UK, but you are interested in a US brand that's coming here, right? Do you think that you're going to get something? Are you going to expect something different? Are you going to expect more kind of, you have the FDD? Will there be more framework, do you think? I'll put this across to Alan. If you picture yourself as a franchisee now looking at a US brand in the UK, do you think there's a better framework? Will it be different? What's to expect if there's a prospective franchisee looking at US brands?
I mean, I believe from what I've seen helping clients expand, it's similar, and that the franchisees looking to see the support, brand recognition, what's the plan, how big my territory is, the technology, has the right import of proprietary products already been sorted through, how many international franchises do they already have, right, around the world to demonstrate success. So it's a lot of same questions a US franchisee would ask of a UK franchise company.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Because it's likely that the brands that have made the leap across the pond, as it were, are going to have had good experience in the US, or extensive experience, let's say that. So you're at least going to be able to, as a potential franchisee or area developer, find out a little bit of information, or quite a lot of information about them, by talking to people in the US. And we live in a world where we can talk to anyone around the world. You can talk to franchisees when they're not in the same country. So yeah, great good answer, Alan. I can put that one up whenever I want. Joe now I can get him to agree with anything you say. Let's have a look at a couple of great comments here from Genevieve. We've got about 5 minutes or so left of the first part of today's show. Let's have a look. Could you get a company-owned or locally owned pilot branch, not a franchise, to get the info for the FDD? Yeah. What do you make of this one, Alan? And Kay? Kay's nodding. Let's go Kay first.
Yeah, I learned to sit with my head still. Yes, I think a locally owned opening proof of concept is an excellent way to go, pilot branch, because it does give you the cost information you need for the FDD. It tells you consumer receptiveness to the product that you're selling. You can test out your supply chain, your IT system, work on the financials to make sure both sides have the opportunity to get a good return on their investment. And it helps to get the brand out.
Yeah.
Also gives you a good place to show prospective franchisees when you're trying to expand via franchise model. Come on in, sit down, look at what we've got, have some food or experience our services. Here's the business model that we're going to ask you to follow.
Yeah, and Alan, what I can tell you you were almost physically doing that to stop yourself talking. What do you think?
No. There's actually, there's a legal basis for doing it as well.
Yeah.
In the US, we have your whatever you disclose in your FDD, you have to have a reasonable basis for doing so.
Sure.
So in your item 7, for example, item 7 is your estimated initial investment. If you have not entered the US market or done homework in the US market, how do you have a reasonable basis for preparing those estimates? And I've encountered when franchise companies have gone to register in certain states, examiners have inquired about that. Or even if there's an item 19, which is what we call a financial performance representation. In the US, unlike the UK, if you're going to share any revenue, financial information about expected performance in a franchise, although the FTC rule allows you to do projections, the states it has to be based on historical. So if you have information and you try to base it on performance in the UK, a state examiner may likely very well ask you, well, what's the reasonable basis to expect that you can do, that a franchisee would achieve similar figures in the US? So you would say, do not provide an item 19, for example. And having a pilot location from a legal perspective allows you to have that reasonable basis for your FDD purposes and disclosure purposes.
Yeah, I love that. Great question, Jen. Jen's put in another few questions, but we're about less than a minute away from the first part of today's show concluding. I think we might have to do a franchising in the USA part 2, because it's clearly something that's really engaged with our community and with our audience. So we're definitely gonna we're going to continue to do this. What I will say is both Alan and Kay can look at the messages and the comments that have come in and perhaps get into some conversations after the show as well. And of course, you can reach out to them both via me, and I can connect anybody who is in the audience today as well. I think let's finish up on a brief sort of your thoughts of what franchising is going to look like in the US in the future, in sort of 30 seconds or so. We'll go to Kay first. What do you think? What's coming up in the US? Do you think, which direction are you heading?
I think franchising will continue to grow. I think it will continue to be a very viable business model for companies to expand. I do think you're going to see more and more sophisticated franchisees come on the scene, people who are not looking to open one of a business, but to really build a bigger business by multi-unit development and multi-brand development. Because from the franchisee standpoint, once they understand franchising and they see the opportunities, then they're going to want to keep growing. Absolutely. So you're going to see bigger, more sophisticated franchisees. Private equity has certainly come into play both on the franchisee and on the franchisor side. And that will continue to grow as well, I think, from a business standpoint.
Yeah, I love it. And I suppose, and again, very briefly, because we've got about 3 minutes left of the section we're meant to be on now. But Alan, what do you think from the legal side, from the sort of regulation side? Are things going to get tighter? Is there going to be more regulation, do you think? Or, do you think you're regulated enough and it will remain fairly stable in the future?
I mean, at the moment, we continue to see different regulations proposed and be proposed by states and evolve. For example, it really depends on the federal administration and how active the federal administration is. And then you have certain states, for example, if under the current administration, you don't have that active of an FTC in franchising. So states have taken upon themselves to be more active. And so you're seeing more regulations being proposed on the state level. We just had recently this year, the Virginia passed an amendment to its law to basically make post-term non-competes illegal in Virginia. That went into effect, I want to say last month, I believe. And I say that because that's a change of the law on the state level. And so we will continue to see state laws amended and new state laws, I believe, in franchising proposed. And that's just regulating franchising as a whole. I mean, there's constantly, right, we have at the federal level right now, right, the U.S. Franchise Act has been proposed to help with the joint employer rules. We have state level joint employer issues that we're dealing with. We have wage and hour issues that impact franchising that apply to franchise companies. So there are a host of laws that franchise.
Watch this space, I think. Well, we have now come to the end of the first part of today's show. So I would like to thank everyone for getting involved in our conversations. We are definitely going to be talking about American franchising in the future. I can tell you that. It's been an absolute pleasure to have both Alan and Kay on the show. We are now going to go to the last part of the show. Now, this is the part where my camera will turn off if I've clicked it properly, because you're not allowed to see me without wearing a hat. There we go, got one on. Most weeks I forget to turn that off, and you do see me without wearing a hat. Now, of course, this part of the show is brought to you by PJ Murphy and Son, my friend who was in franchising, and he's also a hatter. So if you'd like a lovely hat like this one, then reach out to my lovely friend Paul. Now, this is also the part of the show where we have a bit of fun. We find out a little bit about our wonderful guests, and they get a chance to get their own back on me, and they can ask me a question. We've got a couple of 3 minutes left. So I'm going to ask, and I'll go to each of you, have you ever met anyone famous? Have you got a claim to fame or an unusual hobby or sport? And let's go with Alan first. Give you a little bit of time there to think, Kay.
Throw me under the bus here.
Yeah, well, you can get your own back in a minute.
I don't have an unusual. Well, it's not no unusual hobby activity, but I'm very passionate about sports. and I really enjoy collecting and drinking whiskey. So I have quite the collection of whiskeys in my house, but I drink it all. A lot of people buy it and just display it. Mine are all open.
Oh, amazing. And what's your favorite whiskey?
Someone asked me that yesterday, actually. They texted me. Sazerac 18-year rye.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, there's a recommendation for you. And the same question to you, Kay. Have you got a story about someone famous or a crazy hobby?
Well, I've met you and Alan, so that's at the top of my famous people list. I've also met Presidents Bush, Reagan, and Bush Jr., so that was kind of interesting. And I worked for Tom Monahan, who was the founder of Domino's Pizza, and certainly famous within the pizza world. Yeah, I've been very lucky. I've really enjoyed my time in franchising. It's given me a lot of interesting opportunities all around the world. So
amazing. Well, look, thank you both. I did promise you that you could get your own back on me, and I'll choose one of you. Either one of you can do this. You can get to ask me any question you like and get your own back on me. So now is the time for that, or you can let me get away with it. It's up to you.
What's your favorite hat, Harvey?
That's a very good question. That's a very good question. I think I've been asked it again. I should say one of the lovely hats that Paul made me, and I do love those hats. But I think it's this original one. I bought it for about £20, and it's very weathered. My wife says it looks like a fishing hat, but I've got a lot of fondness for that. But I think with style, it's certainly this or the purple one that's behind me. So great question. Great question. Well, look, we have come to the end of today's show. So I'd first of all like to thank everyone who has been with us today, getting involved in our comments. You are what makes this show special. You are the producers and the directors of this show. So your comments are always greatly appreciated, and looking forward to doing this the next time. And of course, I'd like to thank our lovely guests, Alan Greenfield and Kay Ainsley. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And it just leaves me now to let you know what's going to go on next week on the Franchise Show. We are talking about understanding your franchise people. And we've got Dan Archer from Visiting Angels and Neil Newman from Gather. So that's going to be a great conversation about our wonderful people in our businesses. So please join us next Tuesday, 21st of July, 5:15 GMT, 12:15 EST. And until next time, my friends, take very good care. Cheerio.